Eagle Methodist Church 75th Anniversary. Services commemorating the 75th anniversary of the Eagle Methodist Church were held Sunday morning, November 10, 1946, at 10:30 a.m. and Sunday evening at 7:45 p.m. Besides a very inspiring message given by the guest pastor, Reverend Charles Haywood of Wauwatosa, at the morning service, Mr. H.A. Torhorst of Genesee, Wisconsin, rendered two beautiful violin selections. He was also accompanied at the piano by Miss Jeanette Smart, also of Genesee. The evening service was conducted by Reverend T.G. Amphlett, resident pastor of North Prairie and Eagle churches the past 3 years. Special music was also given by the choir, and a pageant titled 75 Years in Review by the Historical Committee. Letters regretting their absence from several former pastors were read, and messages from older members residing in faraway states were enjoyed. Still, several families scattered around Wisconsin and Illinois were in attendance. Characters for the pageant, appropriately garbed, depicting various eras in the past 75 years, and a brief history of the church were shared, telling the story of the Methodist Church in Eagle. The first services began in the 1830s, when an itinerant Presbyterian preacher appeared at the home of Eagleville miller, Dr. Daniel Bigelow, asking permission to have a few people gather in his home for worship. Dr. Bigelow gladly agreed, feeling greatly honored that his home had been chosen, and from there on, homes were open to the preachers and people. Soon people began to segregate themselves denominationally. In 1836, the Methodists met in the barn of Mr. A.R. Hinckley. Later they occasionally met in the homes of Ebenezer Thomas and in community schoolhouses which had sprung up in Jericho, Palestine, and Eagle. Eventually the Methodists settled on an old log schoolhouse known as Number 1 and held meetings there from 1841 to 1860. At that time, John Hage, purchased an old schoolhouse at Eagle for $80 and converted it into a church in which they worshipped for 10 years. Thus, the Methodist established the first church in Eagle. In the year 1871, the present Methodist Church building was erected on land donated by Thomas Pittman. The first Board of Trustees and early followers of the church set an example to the youth of the community of vision and energy, of service to their fellow man, and of contributing one's share to the world's work and the sum of human happiness. It was then that the nucleus of the first Sunday school was formed. It is pleasing to note that these far-visioned men and women realized that youth must have an interest in things for good, and at the same time be entertained. Continuing in their march of progress, members and interested people of the community are looking forward to the church of the future. An anniversary supper was served by the Women's Society of Christian Service in the church dining room on Monday evening, with many participants attending.